big bar pop up at the top of your screen that says the meeting is now being recorded and is providing a live transcription if you need that. This is the February 8th of 2022 meeting of the Northside Green Zone Task Force. And I think I'm handing it over to Leslie to do our land acknowledgement.
Welcome, everybody. As we begin, let's pause for a moment to contemplate industrious land and enslaved peoples. We have to start with honesty. Land acknowledgement is a traditional custom dating back centuries for Native communities and nations. For non-Indigenous communities, land acknowledgement is a powerful way of showing respect and honoring the Indigenous peoples of the land on which we work and live. The Indigenous Land and Enslaved People Acknowledgement. We invite you to recognize the written histories of the United States, specifically Midwestern states, as fractured. Let us acknowledge then that we are currently on the land of the Indigenous who continue to be systematically erased by policies and practices that we remove their histories from this place. Let us honor the enslaved people who built the wealth and the foundation of the United States. Let us recognize the history of the United States as complex with the racism of white supremacy. We recognize that these different histories persist in present day by racial realities and prejudice within our Minneapolis Green Zone Task Force movement. We commit to dismantling racism in spaces of our work. We invite you to work beside us to create change. And thank you, and welcome to the Green Zone meeting. And I'm gonna turn it over to our facilitator, Vanessa.
Vanessa, you're muted.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vanessa, and I'm the leadership.
Can you hold the phone up closer?
Okay, can you hear me now?
That is better.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Vanessa, and I am on the leadership team. Before we begin, I'd like to say this meeting as authorized on the minute.
All right, we're still not able to hear you very well. Does any one of Andrew or Leslie want to do the intro, or do you want me to?
So y'all can't hear me at all?
Well, now I can hear you.
Okay, I need to hold the phone to my mouth. Then y'all won't be able to see my face. Then I have to hold it like this for you to hear me.
Okay.
So would you like me to start?
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Y'all heard me say that I'm a part of the leadership team for the Northside Green Zone Task Force. Before we begin, I'd like to make that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota statutes, section 13D.021. Due to the declared local health pandemic, the city will be recording and posting this meeting to the city's website and YouTube channel as a means of increasing public access and transparency. Board meetings are public and subject to the Minnesota Open Meeting Law. I will now call this meeting to order and ask Kelly to call the roll call so that we may verify the presence of a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Vanessa. Do you have an icebreaker question, or should we just do intros today?
How was your day today? How did you enjoy today's weather? Would be a good
All right, good one. All right, I will start at the end of our list. And so Vanessa, if you would like to go first.
Hi, today was a great day. It was nice and warm when I came out from work, and it was a great day at work today too.
Anthony.
Hi, everybody. My name's Anthony Taylor. I'm with Neighborhood and Community Relations. Besides technology issues that seems like will never go away with any of us, my day was good. Went outside, just got done barbecuing some chicken and didn't have to put on a skull cap and a big ass coat. So today was good.
Roxanne.
Man, that sounds bomb. It was nice today. It was nice to see some sun. I'm doing all right. And was that the check-in question?
Yeah, how's your day?
Okay. Yep.
Anything you want to say about yourself for introduction?
I used to like the Little Mermaid movie when I was a kid. I miss being a kid some days. That's it. That is all.
Hey, me too, Roxanne, for real.
I know,
That's great.
right? It's all good.
Thanks, Roxanne.
I love being
Lene?
grown too. I love being grown. And go, okay, all right.
Lene, Northside Green Zone. The weather was good. I spent the afternoon outside. None of us had coats, hats, or gloves on. And it was just lovely. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Lene. Leslie Jackson.
Hi, Leslie Jackson here, a member of the leadership team of the Green Zones. It was a remarkable day. A lot of information get done. My computer didn't want to act up, but technology, as Anthony calls it, TT Day. Nice to be here. Glad to see everybody.
Thanks, Leslie. Marquita.
I had a pretty good day, busy inside most of the day, so I haven't had the opportunity to enjoy the sun, feel the sun. Hopefully, I got a half hour I can run out there quick. Good to see y'all.
Thanks, Marquita. Joanne.
Hi, it was a good day. Went for a walk, pushed some snow around to make the city of Minneapolis happy. And I'm in school, and tomorrow is a day off because it's a teacher thing. I really like being in school with days off.
Thanks, Joanne. Anita.
Hi. Excuse me, I'm cooking supper at the same time I'm doing this. My computer is acting up today, of all days. I've had meetings all days, and this is like my fourth meeting I started, so I haven't been outside at all. I don't even have shoes on. Barely got my pants on today, so you know I'm dressed, but that's as far as I got today. But overall, it's a good day because I got a lot accomplished. So I look at it that way. And like I said, I'm cooking dinner as I'm still accomplishing. Good
Thanks,
to see
Anita.
you all.
What's for dinner?
I do have a guest. What's for dinner? My husband wanted what he calls what does he call it? I call it hot dish, but he calls it something else. So I made the mistake saying, "What do you want for dinner?" So I wanted to take an opportunity to introduce a young man that I've had a conversation with, Aiden Yano. He's a guest here tonight. He is with the Minnesota Environmental Justice Table, a young man that I met a few years ago while I did a presentation at the University of Minnesota Urban Studies class. And he and I had a good conversation yesterday. They're interested in connecting with the Northside Green Zone. They are funded right now by Community Power, which is a group of folks. I know a few in North Minneapolis. And so they're using their information and their assistance in getting going. So Aiden, are you here?
I think he said he wasn't going to be able to make it tonight, but I think a couple of his colleagues.
Yeah. Hey, Akira's not here. Thank you for that kind introduction, Anita. This is oh, come on, camera. This is Nazir. I'm a colleague of Akira's, but thank you.
Thanks for coming. Okay, I'm done.
Thanks, Anita. Andrew.
Hey guys, yep, I'm here, member of the leadership team, and I guess I would say today I'm envious of those who got outside. I've got a little Zoom fatigue. We had an all company meeting basically all day, so I'm trying to soak it up from you guys right now with these positive vibes.
Thanks, Andrew. Akia?
Yep, Akia here. Definitely warmer day today, so that was nice. I spent the weekend ice fishing on the lake, so it was cold and freezing the whole time. So definitely today was nice, but I'm just not looking forward to tomorrow when all the snow melts and refreezes and it gets slippery. But it was nice today.
Thanks, Akia. All right, so that does make for a quorum of our Green Zone members. Oh, I'm seeing Jim has joined us. Jim, we're just doing introductions. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jim Vole. I work for CPAD. I'm a non-voting Green Zone. I mean, obviously it's Green Zone, but I'm non-voting. You probably don't want to know about what other memberships I have, but I am a non-voting Green Zone member.
Thanks, Jim. Did I miss any other Northside Green Zone Task Force members? We'll get to guests next. Nope. Okay, great. Well, we did make quorum, so that is good. And then Nazir, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Nazir. I'm with the Minnesota Environmental Justice Table. I'm also joined here by Leslie, and we should have someone else joining as well, Crystal. Yeah, and we're here to talk with folks about our work, which includes work around the Herc Incinerator, as well as moving the county to zero waste, and yeah, just building power from the grassroots to address the climate emergency.
Thanks, Nazir. Yeah, Leslie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, my name is Leslie Gutierrez. I am the environmental justice organizer with Copal, and also do work with Nazir at the table. I also live over north of, on Elwood.
Thanks for being here. And I think next we're going to hand it over to Leslie Jackson, who's going to introduce our guest from Hennepin County. So I'll save your introduction since we're going to have you come up right now. So Leslie, why don't you take it away?
Well, welcome again to the Green Zone meeting. Today we asked for Herc to come back, as well as the Recycling Association. So hopefully they have questions that they can answer for us, that we sent a list to you guys, and we're more than happy to pick up from where we left off at. And Happy New Year to those that I didn't say that to. And you could introduce yourselves, please. Thank you.
That sounds good. Thank you for having us again. So last time I was here, I came along with some natural resource colleagues, and we were talking about the natural resources strategic plan development. But we also were asked to come and kind of prepared to talk about our organizational chart and kind of who we are at Hennepin County and what areas we represent. And so I brought along now some colleagues from the waste reduction and recycling side, and we're going to help answer your questions. I have Carolyn Colopy here and Ben Knudsen. Carolyn's going to be running the PowerPoint. Do you mind putting that up, Carolyn, and then we can look at the org chart to talk about who we are. So I'm the Strategic Initiatives Manager for Hennepin County Environment and Energy. I'm in the admin division, and I oversee the environmental education, community engagement efforts, as well as coordinate our department's climate work. And so Ben and Carolyn are here. They're in the solid waste division and the waste reduction and recycling unit. Do you want to just give a brief hello and who you are? Carolyn, if you want to start.
Hi there, I'm Carolyn Colopy. I'm one of the supervisors for the waste reduction and recycling unit under the solid waste and energy division in the Department of Environment and Energy.
And Ben?
Hi everyone, Ben Knudsen, Carolyn's counterpart in the waste reduction and recycling unit. And I haven't made it outside yet, but I saw a nuthatch hopping around on my tree and it looked warm out there.
Yeah, I haven't made it outside yet either, so
too many meetings with Ben and Carolyn today. As Leslie mentioned, Kelly was able to share your questions that you wanted us to cover ahead of time. So we put them up on each on a slide to make sure we cover the items asked. We're happy to answer questions as we go. And just know that if we don't have the answer, we can go back and talk to others and follow up. And we do really hope that this is not the start of a conversation, rather, and not just this one chance to ask us. We want to know what your questions are specifically around HERC, but also around plastics and waste reduction and recycling programs. And we will continue to follow up. And we do want to talk about the work that's underway with the development of the zero waste plan. So we have a couple of slides on that. But we promise it's not going to be long, so you can ask us questions. So next slide, please, Carolyn. So the first question was, how does the county transport ash from the incinerator to Rosemont, and what route does it take through the cities? And so we put that up here. It's transferred to Rosemont in end dump trailers. We've got a picture of what that looks like there. And the most used route is to take I-94 east, then to Highway 52 south to Highway 55 east, and then the SKB landfill is right off of Highway 55. Did that answer sort of what you were looking for on the ash transport question?
It does. And to follow that up, because of the transportation coming from North Minneapolis on Highway 94, and we don't have any blockage, Anita, you can help me on the proper wording. Are you guys planning on protecting us for the emissions and the soot that's coming that pops off those trucks as they travel through our cities?
The emissions from the truck, like the tailpipes.
The emissions from the traveling. So if you drive behind any truck on these highways, I don't care what city or where you're at, little kibbles and bits of things pop out of these trucks. And my thing is, how secure are these transports to keep these elements of the ash from spewing onto our highways that get into the whip, the eddies, and the surface air circulation that hits us back into our communities?
Yeah, I will go back and follow up as well with to find out sort of what containment. I know that there's a cover on the top. Specifically in terms of the route traffic, I mean, HERC is located really right off of an on-ramp in downtown Minneapolis onto 94. So I think more of that concern would be along that route that you talked about here. But I will go back and ask about more details around those.
One more question.
Yep.
Not to cut you off. Do you think that there would be funding from HERC to help our community advocate for, what are those panels called? Anita, what are those panels along the highway?
Are we talking about the sound barriers?
Yeah, like the barriers, because the barriers help keep some of that emission and stuff getting into our airways in our community. So that's the word, barriers.
Did you guys say sound barriers?
There's sound, noise barriers, but she's talking specifically about the walls that MnDOT puts along the corridors.
Oh, okay. How much time is put in here for questions? I'm just wondering, because I have 2 questions as well that aren't on this list.
Well, maybe we'll just keep moving and then come back to that. I've got another question here that I'll write down and we'll get back to you on that. Carolyn, do you want to?
How much time did you put for questions?
Well,
we got 30 minutes, 45, just whenever, if it comes up with the slideshow, just pop in there, Roxanne.
Okay, well, okay.
So the next question was around, would the county consider changing air monitors to regulate the pollution of burning plastic and the pollution that burning plastic emits? And so I want to know kind of, or make sure to tell me, which pollutants are most concerned to you from plastics, and then I can get more specific information. But in particular, the ambient air monitors are managed by the MPCA. So we don't necessarily control what happens with those air monitors. I did learn when talking to my technical staff that the ambient air monitoring for pollutants for mercury, dioxins, and furans and PCBs is generally very expensive, and it's more likely not to have detection rates, and that's why the PCA doesn't typically include those kind of monitoring with the air monitoring that they have, and that they model those pollutants instead. And then,
let me say this.
Yeah.
You use the word expensive. So how expensive is the lives of humans? We can go back all the way into slavery and how much they used them for mortgages. So we won't go into that. But when you say expensive, when we have not just her, but there's 7 incinerators across the state of Minnesota, none of them are being regulated or monitored for the plastic. Not only that, we have manufacturers that make the plastic here that aren't. So human life in the state of Minnesota, not just mine, yours, and everybody that dwells here is subject to this. These contaminants because of the surface air and the circulation. You can look at the WCCO news channel, Google surface air and the circulation through it. And when you say what's expensive, to me, I don't know. It's upsetting. And to me, it's human lives. And this is these plastics are just as contagious and dangerous to all of us. And we're breathing these things. And you want to know why you're sick and this and that. Well, because things aren't being properly monitored. And I'll shut up from that because I can go on.
I mean, I would just say that that's more than a question for the Pollution Control Agency. I think because the work that they've done to look at those concentrations, that the investment in that technology wouldn't necessarily get you additional data that could help improve health incomes or health outcomes. But that would be a question for the PCA. In particular, I think when we're talking about if the concern is around mercury, dioxin, furans, PCBs, the pathways for that is not inhalation, it's or breathing it in, it's exposure from food sources. And so it's that accumulation, depositing in the soils, and then animals eating that vegetation and or fish, when you hear about like mercury in fish, and then it bioaccumulates in the fatty tissues, and then people eat it. And that's the majority of folks, how they are exposed, their pathway for dioxins, mercury, and PCBs. Specifically to talk about HERC and our pollution control technology, we do have continuous monitoring of the emissions listed on the screen here. In terms, and that was installed in 2016. And so that monitors SOx, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, CO2, carbon monoxide, and then the opacity. And the opacity reading can tell the operator if there's a problem with the bag house and the filters. And so that this screenshot you see here is that operator who's monitoring that equipment and other readings in the facility to identify if there are any problems.
So why did you guys change your monitoring? Because there's documentation that a report came out, and I have it, where certain elements and mercury and things were being regulated and monitored, and a couple of years to the present now, you've changed what is being regulated and monitored and coming out of your facility. So I could share that information with you, and it's just a comparison of things. And yeah, I'm still that geek and still researching, but I'll shut up again.
No, and I would appreciate if you could share anything that you have that you want us to answer to specifically. What we measure is determined by our permit, and so our permit did in like when the facility was first built, we may have been permitted for certain things. I know like our mercury standard has decreased over the years as the permit has been renewed. So I'd be happy to look at that and get a response for you on that. Carolyn, can you go to the next slide, please? So I did just want to bring an overhead of a photo of the plant, because I think that's something that people are kind of surprised by, is that most of the equipment in the plant is related to pollution control equipment. And so you'll kind of see if you've driven past HERC, or, you know, kind of see parts of HERC. I mean, the stacks stand out, and the cooling tower is probably something that's really apparent in what you see a lot in the winter. But the air pollution control equipment is really the majority of the facility. And we used urea that's injected into the furnace to control nitrogen oxides. We have powdered activated carbon that's injected into the exhaust to remove mercury and dioxin. And then those exhaust gases pass through a scrubber, and they add lime to control, again, hydrogen chlorides and sulfur dioxins. And then all that gas passes through fabric filters. You can imagine they're kind of like a furnace filter you might have, but there's 3,000 bags, and they're 8 feet wide, 20 feet tall, that those gases pass through. And that's designed then to pull out that particulate matter, metals and dioxins that have been sort of attached in that activated carbon stage. So that's kind of an overview of the pollution control equipment we have. Next slide, please. And this is where the questions turn over around plastic, and I think Ben and Carolyn are going to help. And then I saw some stuff coming up in the chat. I couldn't quite read them as I was looking at my notes, but I will go ahead and look at those while Ben and Carolyn talk and respond, and then maybe some additional questions as we proceed. Thank you.
Can we maybe pause here and see if there's any other questions related to the air pollution, and then move into the plastics?
Yeah, I have some questions. Is that okay to ask now?
Yeah, it looked like also Vanessa unmuted, and then Andrew raised his hand. So let's do Roxanne, then Vanessa, and then Andrew.
Okay, so these questions came from community that were concerned, or that are still concerned. Many of us are concerned, so it's not just people coming to us. I think many of us on this committee are also concerned about the HERC being in this community. But for starters, I have two questions. One, well, incineration does emit harmful pollutants like lead, nitrogen oxides, particulate matter, PM2. Also, burning plastics produces dioxins, the primary ingredient in Agent Orange, and one of the most toxic chemicals known to humankind. A study in Netherlands found high concentrations of dioxins in eggs of backyard chickens surrounding an incinerator. I think there is much peer-reviewed research showing that incinerators contribute to and cause serious health problems. So why does the county present this one-sided positive picture of HERC and not tell the full story? Doesn't it have an obligation as a governmental body to tell the whole truth and warn people of the dangers, even if it believes they are only potential dangers? You can
Sounds
write
like
the
the
answer.
14th Amendment to me, because we have
You
the
can
right.
write the answer into the chat if that's easier, but hopefully we could get that answered now and in writing.
Sure. I mean, I can try and respond now, and I can also try and respond in writing. I mean, I think The county wants to share information about the environmental performance, which includes our air emissions, with the public. We know that there are concerns that community members have, and the county has not done a good job in listening and responding to those questions. We're doing that now, and we're going to do a better job going forward. I wouldn't say we're trying to present a one-sided picture. I think we are trying to answer the questions you have. And as the questions get more specific and you can share with us what you're learning, what you're reading, what you're hearing, we can go back and ask our technical folks to look at these things. I think.
Well, you know, again, writing would probably be better as far as responding to these questions so we don't take up too much time. So I can give you more time to be able to respond to that, you know, why the county is painting this one-sided picture. And are these really just community concerns, or do you guys also have these concerns, but maybe there's some sort of monetary motivation to hide these concerns? I don't know. Maybe you guys can answer that in writing. But for reference, the MPCA's emissions data shows that in Hennepin County, HERC is the #1 biggest emitter of nitrogen oxides. #2, sulfur dioxide. #3 in lead. #3 in lead. #2 in particulate matter. #4 in PM10, and #6 in carbon monoxide. My next question is, does the county defends HERC by saying HERC's air permit requires it to operate under stringent US EPA and state of Minnesota air pollution regulations. But does HERC's air permit account for the cumulative impacts of other air pollution sources? Do you want me to ask that question again?
The question is, does our current air permit account for the cumulative impact of additional air sources?
Yes. Does your air permit require
No. Our air permit requires what the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency required.
Which is not the cumulative impact. So you guys are not taking into account the cumulative impact.
I think we're interested in understanding how HERC would play a role in cumulative impacts. I think the list of items you rattled off around HERC's contribution, HERC does emit air pollution that is regulated by our permit, but that's the permitted sources, and there's a lot of sources that are not permitted.
But is your permit taking into account the cumulative impacts of other air pollution sources? Does the county believe that their permit is taking into account the cumulative impacts?
The permit does not take into account cumulative impacts because the permit was issued by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. They would have taken into account alternative options. Is the main thing that they look at is what would be the alternative, and the alternative would be landfills.
I'm not sure if that's the only alternative, and I think we should be careful about, you know.
That was what was considered in the permit. I'm not saying that's the only alternative to the waste that we're managing today.
Oh, okay. And I don't want to take up too much time. We could continue this conversation, and if you can write back in writing, you know, that would be great, so that we can have this conversation again when we have more time. I know other people have questions. Thank you.
And I would like to take the opportunity to perhaps invite someone who's got more expertise to walk through the air quality, you know, how the PCA looks at it, how they assess health risk. That's information we could bring to the conversation, but I know you also want to talk about plastics, and that's really where Ben and Karen.
We can do that at another date because Roxanne brought up some good points, the same ones that I have concerns with. But we'll keep it.
And
moving.
these came
Thank
from
you.
the community, so these are I'm just asking because, you know, community, it's not really transparent you know, we're kind of communities getting a one-sided story, not just us, you know, we are community, but like, you know, the committees are getting one-sided stories, and it doesn't matter. I mean, we could keep going.
Thank you, Roxanne.
I think Vanessa was next.
I didn't have a question. What my question was, did we approve the agenda in a minute?
Yeah, I realized that after we went into Hennepin County, we forgot to do that. So we'll come back to that when that's done. So yeah, thanks for calling me out on that. Okay, so Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And maybe towards what Roxanne is saying in future conversations, just curious, obviously you guys are working within the regulations that are being, you know, upheld, and going above and beyond isn't necessarily part of what's required right now. So I guess my question would be is, as far as, you know, the community's concerns and moving things forward in a positive direction, that, you know, it's a good report that you guys gave, that there are some improvements given, and, you know, from where it came from. But as far as pushing it further, what would you suggest our group, who should we engage with as far as that your, you know, in your organization, and what is the best route that you see for us to make additional progress on these numbers?
In particular on air pollution improvements?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, I think if that's something you're interested in, that is the county's top criteria when we're looking at our capital improvement projects. And we do look to facilities similar to what is operating in Europe to look for the best, latest technology and improvements. And then we have independent consultants who go out on a routine basis looking for improved technology. I would say that is the difference between a county owning and operating a facility like this and a private for-profit company, is that our motivation is not for profits. Our motivation is to be protective of our environment and public health. And so the county has invested millions of dollars of voluntary pollution control equipment, some of the things I mentioned here, with like the continuous emissions control. But we could have a staff member come back and give a presentation on, you know, sort of the which items we're looking at and looking for different avenues to improve. But that is a part of our regular work.
Right. Thank you. No, I appreciate that. And I think what just in our conversations as a group here is we want to have more engagement rather than presentations, and just looking for the best way to facilitate that going forward.
Yeah, I do think the model of, you know, kind of identifying, you know, a handful of questions, sending it to us, that helps us kind of line up the right presenters or people to answer those questions.
Thank you.
Is it still possible to come get a tour?
Right now,
are those open?
Because of COVID protocols, we are not allowing volunteer or visitors into the building, but we will be able to. I'm hoping this summer, as things ebb, we'll be able to resume tours, and we would be happy to host this group and others to come inside and talk to the technical guys and kick the tires inside the plant.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question. All right, let's hand it back to Hennepin County to continue on with the presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Kelly. I wanted to try to answer the next question, which was, what kind of plastics are in the trash and going to HERC? And so we did a waste sort study of Minneapolis residential trash back in 2016. It was a very thorough study. We had a lot of different categories. So we looked all through the trash, and this is what we found. And of all the trash, 15% is plastic. And that chart there breaks down all the plastics by category. And we were curious how much of that plastic was currently recyclable and how much was currently not recyclable. So as you can see, there are 13% is recyclable in the curbside program for the city. 6% we identified as recoverable film. So if you take that to a Target or a different location, it could be recycled. But then a lot of it was just non-recyclable currently. So that breaks down into durable and other, film that's not recyclable, all sorts of packaging, the trash bags themselves, and then a small proportion where it was polystyrene and PVC. And I know you look at the durable and other category and you're probably like, well, what's in there? And it's like absolutely everything. I was there doing the sort, and it's the football that your kid popped, or it's a car mat that was ripped, or part of a vacuum tube that was broken, and on and on and on. So that's kind of the durable and other category. So the primary reason we look in the trash is to figure out how we can do better and how we can make more progress to zero waste. So kind of like what Roxanne was saying about alternatives, like we're constantly looking for alternatives and how we can do better. And then if you can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry, I should pause for any follow-up questions there.
So is the durable plastic going to the incinerator? What dirty plastic gets tossed to her?
All these plastic categories right here, this is all what we found in Minneapolis trash that was going to HERC. So
all that's going to HERC.
Everything here.
And this is from 2016, not considering the growth in population that we have going on now in 2022. Very interesting. Okay.
And there's been a little bit of change. We're going to partner with the city of Minneapolis this coming spring to do another sort. So we'll be able to give you, I don't know the exact timeline on that, but we'll be able to kind of show you how things have changed. The growth in plastics kind of continues, but there have been some changes as well. So we can provide you a little more.
How much per ton, how much per weight is this plastic that's going there? Because then that's how we can measure how much is being spewed into the environment. So how much would you say that weight is, like per ton or pounds, or do you guys measure it in that amount?
Right. Yeah, good question. So we measure things in tons just because that's the easier way to do it than volume. Obviously, plastic is light, so it takes up a little more volume. But yeah, basically we measured, okay, here's all the tons, and here's the percent by weight, by ton. So 15% by weight is plastic.
And one more question. How much is sold to these plastic entities and manufacturers for recycling? The places that take the plastic bottles or whatever and recycle it, how much is sold to them, and how much a profit do you make from selling those plastics?
Oh, good. Another good question. So on the recycling end of things, the city contracts with a nonprofit named Eureka, and Eureka will sort it into all these different categories, and then Eureka will sell the plastics to make new Coke bottles or whatever, new milk jugs. And in some ways the city gets that revenue back, and they give that revenue back to residents just by lowering the cost of recycling. So that's the circularity of the recycling is a really nice element. I'm not sure if that answers your question in particular. I didn't get into details about like where exactly everything is going, but we could follow up on that.
No, but I don't like the incentive that the residents get something that they don't know that they're getting. For us being consumers, we're contributing to industry that's getting ready to take off, and we don't get nothing but a discount off our trash cans. Wow, and it's a plastic one at that. How wonderful America is. I'm gonna keep it moving.
I feel like I have a follow-up question there for you to better understand you, but I can I can do this next one as well. Is the county going to ban black plastic bags, including the sale of plastic bags in retail? So there's actually a state statute that prohibits bagging or banning bags. So it's a ban on bag bans. So our hands are tied there. However, we are interested in working with a wide variety of partners to see what we can do on different levels, federal, state, local. So I would make a pitch that, you know, you can join us in making an impact by taking a look at the Plastics Pact. So that's something that we joined last year, and we're interested in working with them and other partners to identify unnecessary and problematic plastics that can be eliminated in the future.
Now, are you thinking about probably doing an extended program, charging the producers of plastic a fee, working with them to take responsibility because of this waste stream that's going in? And have you thought about giving an incentive like they do in other states for plastic bottles, 15 cents, 10 cents, depending on the size, 25 cents for milk containers? Again, incentive to the community and not an incentive to the manufacturers that continue to pollute our airways without us having proper air equipment because it's too expensive. And all we are is just slaves contributing to our own demise by the plastic that reveals and chokes our cities. So I'm just wondering about the incentives and things that we can do as residents to help curb the impact of the plastics that's being burnt.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a good question, Leslie, and I'm going to pass the baton to Carolyn for that, because she can speak in more detail about those exact incentives and basically the producer responsibility behind that.
So for the next couple slides, I want to talk a little bit about some of the initiatives and programs that we have going to address plastics, and then also the zero waste plan. So to answer your question, the state several years back tried to pass a bottle bill. That's what Maine has, where there's 5 or 10 cents on your containers to give you an incentive to bring your bottle back and have it recycled. It did not succeed, as I think we can all see. And you asked about whether or not there's any effort to hold manufacturers accountable. That is something that the county is working on. We're building a coalition right now with other government entities in Minnesota, some private industry, some nonprofits, and we're working on developing legislation. We're working with the Product Stewardship Institute, who has a lot of experience passing product stewardship legislation in the country. There have been a number of successes already. So we're looking to develop similar legislation here in Minnesota, and we're hoping to introduce that in 2023. I do believe there's an effort to introduce legislation this year as well, but that's gonna that legislation is aimed at holding the producers accountable. And in communities that have passed legislation like that, we see greater diversion rates. And we also see innovation in how those products are being designed, because once you hold the manufacturers accountable, they start thinking more about what it is that they're producing. So we are excited about that. And that is something we're working on. And we're hopeful that you know, with the state legislature that we have, that we can get something through by building a coalition of diverse partners. As Ben mentioned, we joined the U.S. Plastics Pact, and that's a national effort that brings private industry, the manufacturers, and a lot of government entities and NGOs together. There's actually plastics pacts around the world in different countries. The one in the U.S. Is part of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation effort, and that's really aimed at accelerating efforts around plastics for circular economy. As Ben said, eliminating those unnecessary plastics. They actually just came out with a list of plastics that they deem unnecessary. And then, you know, they're working on ways to get us towards a circular economy so that we're not having to dispose of these products.
Real quick, I have a question about it goes with the other question, but the first question is, why do we have to put our trash in plastic bags in the first place in the trash can? And then the second question that goes with that is, because why couldn't we just like have like a plastic container that already fits and slides into our normal trash cans or something, and then like we just take, you know, they take it out and dump it, it dumps in, and then it goes back in your thing, and then people are just required to, like, you know, clean it up every blue moon, I guess. You know, I know that's gonna be, you know, probably the issue for a lot of people, but I think, so you get what I'm saying? Those two questions go together.
Oh yeah, I totally hear you. That frustrates me as well. I'm a Minneapolis resident, and that is a city policy, and I do believe it's related to the cleanliness of the bins, keeping them clean. But I think we can probably send that question to our colleagues at the city and ask for more clarification on that.
Yeah, because I mean, if we could get rid of that, just that,
yep,
that would eliminate major plastic right there.
Yep. Yeah, and
I don't know how much water that would, I don't know, in like terms of like, you know, does it use more water than it's, you know, whatever, like as far as it compares, but I don't know. Okay, that was it.
Yeah, no, and as you saw in the previous slide on how much of the waste stream is trash bags, I mean, it stood out. It was that much. So definitely something I think to look into further. So some of the other initiatives that we have around plastics, it's actually going on right now. It's launched on February 1st. This is our second year hosting an online plastic free challenge, and that is for residents. So a number of different actions that residents can take, and a lot of education around plastics and the issues with plastics and how to avoid them. And that's a program that grew out of our Zero Waste Challenge, which is a program we launched in 2016. We're working with 50 households a year to help households identify ways that they can reduce waste and switch from disposables to reusables and make lifestyle changes that result in less waste. And it's been wildly successful. What we found with the households we've worked with is on average 30% reduction in waste, and that's not diversion, so that's not increased recycling, that's total reduction in the waste they're producing. We work with households to meet them where they're at and to find solutions that fit into their life. So those are two options we have for residents. We just got board approval to develop a single-use plastics campaign that's going to be targeted at restaurants. We're going to be working with Minnesota Wastewise. They do a lot of work with restaurants to help them, or restaurants and businesses throughout the metro area, to help them reduce waste. And this will be targeting restaurants to, we'll have some incentives there to help restaurants switch to reusables, and Wastewise will help them find alternatives or solutions to plastics that they're currently using.
I have one more question.
Sure.
So I often hear Herc being like, being shown to community as like this job center, you know, this place where we're getting jobs and we're getting free energy, or we're getting this energy, right? We're producing energy from trash, right? That's the story. I guess one of my major concerns is, being that this is in a community full of, you know, people who are poor and Black and Indigenous and, you know, so on and so forth, poor white, is that we reap the health risks. You know, businesses talk about financial risk. We reap the health and life risks. And it seems as though the businesses, those who already have, those who are already wealthy, are receiving the benefits. So that's a historic kind of pattern that counties and governments have been, and states have been doing, is giving us the risks and then claiming that you guys are taking all the risks and doing all you can, but you're also you're reaping the benefits, right, of this energy maker. And so my question is can we get a list of all the businesses who are receiving these benefits of this energy? I would like to see a list of the corporations who are benefiting the businesses. I would also like to know if the Polad Foundation, who owns the Twins team and the stadium, I'd like to know if they are also reaping the benefits because of that energy. And then the last thing I was going to say is, okay, they were reaping the benefits. Damn, I can't remember. It might come back to me.
We can definitely get an answer to you. I don't have that for you right now. And if you think of what you've forgotten, we can try to address that as well.
So you don't know. So you don't. Oh, I know what it was. But the last question is they say that there's 75% of the trash burned is from businesses and residents. But I want to see those numbers separated. I would like to know how much of the businesses benefit, or how much of the businesses trash is out of that 75%. I would like to separate that from, because then the other 25% is the rest of the 43 other cities in this county trash coming here. But then we're being told that 75% is from us. But I think that's kind of sneaky that you guys wouldn't divide that so that we know what businesses are contributing versus what residents and people living here are contributing. So yeah, just basically, I would like to know who's benefiting off of the free energy. Is the Twin Stadium getting that free energy? And is the HERC turning off during the games? These are all questions I would like to be sent back in writing.
Okay.
But if you can answer any of them now, that'd be great.
Okay, I was gonna say I can answer a few of them now. I mean, the energy is sold to the Excel grid. So that energy then is purchased by folks who buy energy from Excel. The steam would be, there is a line that goes to Target Field, but HERC pays for that. It's not free. Or sorry, the Twins pay for that. It's not free. And then the other portion of the steam goes to Clearway Energy, and that is then sold to downtown buildings that have district energy. And so that's where it goes. It's not free energy. So HERC is in place to manage waste. It really is at this point, the waste that's put in the trash, people choose to throw away. It's an alternative to landfills. We're not here to operate energy, but that is a benefit we can get from the waste at this point. The revenues from the sale of those materials and the metals are put into the county's enterprise fund, and that pays for the waste reduction and recycling programs, all the things that Carolyn talked about there, as well as our natural resources program. So again, and then the question around that 75% of waste that comes from Minneapolis businesses and residents, the breakdown is about 50-50. So about half the waste comes from Minneapolis businesses and the other half comes from residential. So, but we do have more specific data there. And then the list of businesses, that I think will be harder in terms of who brings us waste.
And I guess I don't understand how businesses are accessing to buy this energy? Are you saying that residents aren't buying this energy, or we don't have access to buying it, or?
It's sold to Excel, so anyone who, it goes into the grid, and anyone who buys electricity from Excel would, like, we sell it to Excel, and then they sell it to businesses and residents. And it's a part of their, you know, makeup of their, how they get their electricity.
Yeah, it's part of the grid mix. So it's not like individuals are choosing to purchase electricity from Excel. It just goes into the mix and you pay a rate.
So are they getting a different rate?
No.
Okay,
It's like Excel through its integrated resource plan, which was actually just approved today by the Public Utilities Commission, has a certain amount of coal, a certain amount of gas, certain amount of renewables. HERC is one of the sources that goes into the whole mix that goes to everybody's home or business or wherever. We don't have a choice of who our electric provider is.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. There's probably like 5 people that I'm trying to ask questions.
Okay, so just to finish this up, we also have waste prevention grants available to businesses to do innovative projects that can include moving away from plastics. We just funded Foreverware. They are working with restaurants to use reusable to-go containers. And we also funded a company that is looking to work with coffee shops to do reusable cups, coffee cups. And I mean, you may think paper, but there's plastic in the lining of that. And then we also do have requirements, recycling requirements to our Ordinance 13. I just wanted to point out for businesses and apartments, they are all required to have recycling at their businesses and apartments. And now I want to talk about go to the next slide, the zero waste plan that we're working on. Last year in August, our county board directed us to develop an operational plan to map us to a zero waste future. And the development of this plan is going to involve a number of different things. One, we're going to take a look at our existing waste management system and the programs and policies that are influencing it. And as we look at that, we're going to look at who's benefiting from that system and who's burdened. The development of the plan is going to include a robust engagement process that's going to include community, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, as well as stakeholders. And then ultimately, we're going to be coming up with strategies with the community that we hope will accelerate us to zero waste. We have until November to get a draft plan back to the county board.
So real quick, do you guys turn off the HERC during a Twins game?
I'm sorry, say that again?
I didn't hear what you guys, you guys answer that?
We do not turn off, HERC does not shut down during Twins games.
It doesn't shut down at all?
No, it's 24/7. It's
24/7. Okay.
There are a couple of times during the year where it's shut down for routine maintenance. We call them outages. There's usually a spring and the fall. It's 2 weeks, but other than that, 24/7 operation.
Isn't that when the trash gets transported to another incinerator somewhere in the area? I don't know how far out. If something breaks down, does it get transported to another incinerator?
No, it goes to landfills.
Yeah.
Can we allow for community to ask questions? Because I feel like we don't really get a chance to let them ask questions. And if nobody else on the green zones, has any questions that are super passionate, can we open it up?
Yeah, it's open conversation.
I'd like to allow Nazir to ask some questions. Nazir, are you still there?
Yeah, hey. I do have a question. I think I would also like to just, since we're talking about the zero waste plan, I just want to give some context for it. That's really important for the green zone to hear, which is that this plan came as a result of the efforts of Commissioners Angela Conley and Irene Fernando, the two commissioners of color, the only two commissioners of color on the Hennepin County Board. And that came as a result of, and this is extremely important to say because I think we're getting lost here in like, I think a lot of, it's confusing hearing a lot of this technical information and talk of pollution control equipment and all this stuff. And I think the simple fact of the matter is that this plan came as a result of pressure from the community to shut down the incinerator, the HERC. And because community not only has to and I should say the most impacted members of the community, many of them, because that should honestly not be on the most impacted members of the community. It should be the job of government to have moved on this a lot earlier, especially as many of you know, given the demographics of this area, there are many people who want to move. Many of our, wealthier suburban cities in the county want to move to zero waste faster. So, I think, and it is a question. I guess I have two questions really. The first is, why did it take that to move the county to put together this zero waste plan? Why did it take the two commissioners of color who are seeking to move to zero waste so that there isn't trash to go to this trash burner? That's why we're doing this, which I think is also really important for government to hear from people, that the way we get to zero waste is by actually listening to those people who are impacted. So, and that's where the momentum and the reason to do this comes from. We talk to a lot of students when they understand that recycling, composting, reuse, all of that means that people don't breathe in this trash. That motivates them. So, I mean, that's the first thing. I also think it's really important to say that there is a lot of information that sells the HERC as this positive thing. And I want to be very clear about that, because you will see it. Somebody mentioned the airports. You look at those airport trash bins, and it looks like this magical process in which trash is converted to energy, and there isn't any byproducts or negative effects of that. If that was the case, I think there's ample peer-reviewed research showing that incineration is dangerous, even in Europe. Much of that research is coming from Europe. I posted earlier about dioxins that are found on are found in the community, meaning, and this is something many experts say, dioxins cannot be effectively controlled by pollution control equipment. I think, and that is something I think this Green Zone Task Force that I ask for your help in and especially that fact, because dioxins are increasing due to plastics increasing, due to the fossil fuel industry. And so it really is a health concern. More and more dioxins, people breathing that in, or that ending up on food or on the ground, is a real issue. So I think we do need to pressure and push the Hennepin County and the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency to figure out what's happening with dioxins. Are they being properly controlled? If not, something needs to happen. And I think this is the second question that I have for the county, and that I would ask for support from this group here is, can we make sure that the HERC incinerator there is a plan for the closure of the incinerator through this zero waste plan? Is that an intention of the county, or what else is what is the hope with this zero waste plan then?
So I'll start with your first question, which was what took us so long, or why did it take two commissioners to get us to develop a zero waste plan? So the county has authority, or is responsible for managing waste, and that's given to us by the state. Every 5-6 years, we are required to submit a solid waste management master plan. So we have been planning every year, or not every year, every 5 to 6 years, we develop a plan that has strategies that are outlining how we're going to manage waste. The state, and I don't recall what year, I think it was 2014, set a goal for us of 75% diversion by 2030. So we had a pretty aggressive goal. A zero waste plan the way that we've defined it is to take us to a 90% diversion rate. But I will say we are generating almost 1.5 million tons of waste a year in Hennepin County, and we're currently diverting about 42% of that waste for recycling and organics, and we have a long way to go. It's going to take so much more than us putting things out to the recycling bin, the organics bin. We need big change. We need policy change. The current system that we have, we can't get to 75%. If everyone recycled, if everyone composted, we would not get to 75%. We have a long way to go. So we need big change to get to zero waste. So we're excited that our board is embracing this and wants to push this further and take us beyond the state's goal. But knowing that we were struggling to get to the state's goal, I will say this is going to be hard, and it's going to require transformative change, and it's going to require all of us to get involved to make that change. And I'm with you. I can't stand plastics. I'd like to see them disappear. I don't like how much they've dominated our lives. I don't like what they're doing to the environment. I'm concerned about it. But you know, one step at a time, and we really need to put pressure on our elected officials to make the changes that we need to change this system so that we can get to a future where we don't have a lot of discards, where we are making the best use of the resources that we are extracting from the planet for the use of the convenience of the lives that we live. We're going to need big change, and a lot of us are going to need to speak up.
Carolyn, you spoke of working with policy change. I don't know if I heard that correct, about the extended producer responsibility. If you have a team committed to that, I'm interested in becoming a part of that, because these manufacturers that we have in Minnesota, not just the plastics, but these other entities, need to take responsibility for the damage that they're causing to the state. And I'd like to be a part of that. If you could send Kelly information and my email and all that and connect, because I like to be a part of the policy change plan.
Gladly. I think one of the biggest things that we can all do is contact our state legislators and let them know how we feel about these issues so that they will vote to make change, because that's where a lot of this stuff is getting tied up. But yes, thank you. And I appreciate the support, and we will we'll do what we can to involve you when we get to that point.
I do think that I hear that, I appreciate that. I also think it is not just on state legislators. The county has, we've known in this county that there needs to be multifamily composting for many years. It's been talked about. And from what I can tell, I think when many of us have seen, it's been limited effort, and that really is on the county to implement and put in place requirements to move towards that, to fund that. I think also if you look at Minneapolis has a zero waste action plan. Is Minneapolis being funded or supported by the county to actually implement that plan? So I hear you, and I agree. I completely agree with you. Many of us are working with people like Senator Frank Hornstein, Representative Esther Agbaje, who are putting forward bills. But I think question is, what could be done more effectively by the county to move to zero waste right now? Which I think the zero waste plan is part of that. But yeah, I think like a lot of honestly, there's a lot of goals and a lot of commitments and very little action. And we see Austin, Texas talks about has also put forth 90% diversion as their goal. And I don't, there's a skeptical part of me that's like, oh, so Hennepin County wants to be at the head of the pack. But is there the actual implementation? Is there the actual commitment to reach those goals? That's the question. And that's where community has to hold the county and government accountable.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not just our state legislators. That's one piece of it. I mean, every action is going to have a different level at which we're going to need involvement, and it's going to take county policy, it's going to take state, federal, it's going to take individuals, businesses, all of us. We can't, no one thing is going to solve this problem. But yeah, it's hard. I'm gonna keep fighting for it. I'm gonna, Angie and Ben and I are gonna keep working on it. And we're hopeful that this process to develop a plan can generate more interest from the community, from our legislators, and that includes our county board. And we hope that we can come up with some innovative solutions. So let me just talk a little bit about the approach we're taking to develop the plan. We've hired a solid waste consultant who is a national firm with expertise. They know a lot about a lot of the other communities, nationally, internationally. They'll be looking at those communities and looking at what they're doing, those communities that are reaching those higher diversion levels. There are communities that are getting to 70, 80%. So they'll be looking to see what they're doing and how we can integrate that into what we're doing. But we wanted to hire a solid waste consultant that had national expertise, but when it comes to the engagement, we wanted to make sure that that was local. So we split the approach up. We hired a facilitation consultant who's going to help us with the engagement. And then we're going to the community to get the community's help in doing engagement with the community. So we have hired a cohort of 18 community groups, and I'm going to let Angie talk about that process. This is a list of the community groups that we are going to be working with to do the engagement.
Yeah, I think some of the groups that were mentioned earlier are a part of this list. So Community Power is actually one of the organizations that has been that's being paid to help us with this work, as well as Minnesota Renewable Now. I know Christelle Porter was someone else that was mentioned here. But we did want to make sure that those who are most burdened by the current solid waste system have a way to participate in the discussion. So these are the groups that are going to be working on this team as a cohort. Do you want to go to the next slide, Carolyn, and we can just talk a little bit about what they're going to do. So they're going to be responsible for getting input and helping the county shape the engagement plans, but specifically then hosting engagement sessions for their community, as well as sharing updates on the process and feedback opportunities that would be available to everyone. And then that's individually, but then as a cohort, we want them to come back together and share what they've heard from the community. And so that together as a group, we can gain a broader understanding of the solid waste system and what individuals see as what's working and what do they see as the barriers, as well as identify community driven solutions, and then define themes that would be used in subsequent plan development. So that's really the work that this group will do. Then Carolyn, do you talk through the chapter?
If I could just add though, this is just phase one of engagement. Once we go through the community engagement with the community cohort, we'll move on to phase two. And in that phase, we're going to establish work groups where we'll be looking for community representation, as well as industry stakeholders will come together to develop those strategies for the plan.
What are the tools that are being applied for this engagement? Is it standardized across the landscape, or is each of those groups left to their own devices to frame the issues, to educate people? What's that? What does all those components look like?
We hope that it's both. And so in some elements, we are hoping that the groups will ask similar questions and go through a similar process so that all of the sort of feedback can be consolidated and looked for general themes and quantified. But we also know that the way that groups might ask about it, or the how they might frame a question or interpret a response may be different. And then we're also allowing for flexibility in how groups come up with creative or innovative ideas to do additional engagement and outreach. But it's really going to be shaped by the groups that were selected. So that's kind of their first assignment, is to really refine that engagement process and develop those tools.
I think there was a question that was asked that I didn't hear an answer to, and it was basically, will this zero waste plan include HERC's phasing out?
Angie, do you want me to take that, or do you want to answer that?
I think, if you want to talk through that, I think you probably have a better sense of that.
I mean, ultimately, if we can get to zero waste, we won't need HERC. So that's the goal. Yeah, that we can get to a future where we don't need landfilling. And
is there a timeline for this goal to be completed? Is there something that says, like, in 2027 we hope to have phased out?
We have not set a timeline yet. I think a timeline for getting to zero waste will be part of the development of the plan, but we don't have a timeline yet, no.
Who gets to decide what's the date that our goal should be?
You know, I think it's going to depend on the strategies that we're considering and how feasible they are and how long they're going to take. How aggressive they are, I think, is really going to dictate the timeline.
I'm just concerned.
Would that include more conveyor belts of people digging through the trash? No offense, Ben, I've done that at the University recycling, and that was the most disgusting job I've ever had. But if people were actually picking through their own garbage and using a lot of the food waste for composting and things like that, like in Chicago, they have a thing where the community composts their waste, and they have a place where they get the fresh red soil for their community gardens, and different avenues and things like that that can be taken from a lot of these cities and incorporated to eliminate the waste. And I don't know who you got to make up these plans and things and what their background is. I'm surprised you don't have Michael Chaney in for distributing and becoming in for food waste and production of composting in this committee and things like that, because we have very talented people within the green zone with ideals for diversions. So again, that's just my passing thoughts.
So I don't know what the strategies are going to be. We're really looking to the community to hear what the community wants those strategies to be. I mean, we have a solid waste consultant who has a lot of expertise on, I mean, they're going to be able to help us with potential strategies, but we really want to hear from the community on what are your priorities and where should we go?
I don't really like that. You know what I mean? Don't ask the community what our priorities are when that I feel like you're talking to us like we're stupid, and I don't appreciate that. Our goals are to get our community to stop having to take everybody's trash. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that hard. We've been talking about this for years, probably me, myself, for a decade. So I just think, do us a favor and talk to us like the intelligent people that we are, because just because we don't work for the government or for corporations doesn't mean we don't know what's going on and what you guys are doing.
I'm sorry.
Please, we definitely we definitely want to phase out this incinerator. And we can talk to each other like we don't know and that we don't understand what's going on, but it would probably do us better. We'd get a little farther if people would actually, really stop coming to us for engagement and asking us what we want, and then turning around and still making the decisions, about our health and for the betterment of everybody else's jobs. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, I just cannot deal with that when people do that.
I'm sorry, I did not mean any disrespect. I was just saying that this, I don't know what the strategies are going to be. That's what this process is going to determine.
But you know what we want, so you're not coming here to really figure out what we want, you know.
Well, I want to get to zero waste as well. How we get there, though, I don't know exactly how we're going to get there. There are
basically, not to cut you off. Basically, what I if I'm wrong, Roxanne, please correct me.
You don't.
What I'm saying.
No, don't worry about it.
No, it's including us in these decision makings about our lives instead of after the fact. So when you're making these strategies to zero waste, include the green zone. Ask us the opportunity. This is what we're having. We're having a meeting about strategizing the waste. We have Anthony, we have a Marquita, health. We have all the green zone with all the elements to survive our own village. But I believe, if I'm not wrong, in what I hope in the future moving forward is that you consider the green zone and include them in your stratifications, include us in the plans, because the plans you make affect our lives. And then instead of us laying on the ground trying to breathe the last blade of grass for air, after that's only placed to hold in soil, a lot of people don't know that, but to include us and bring us to the table. And that's the community engagement we want. We want to be a part of the plan A and not the plan FDC, and here it is. So don't leave us behind. Include us right there. And inclusion, I don't like that word because you can have me there and don't listen to me. So you need to eliminate that word and really look into the English language, what that word means. So I believe that's how I feel, and for being born and raised in Minneapolis and seeing the changes that these entities and people have done. And when you include us at the beginning and not at the end. And I believe that's maybe what all of us feel here, because we're all educated and we all have talented gifts to contribute to the plans and the decisions that are made in our city and our everyday lives, because this is the only life we have and the only place we are. I mean, right here for now. I don't know. People might move. I don't know.
I want to take a minute to just recognize the time. We're at 6:34. I don't know if the county folks can stay for further questions in the remainder of your PowerPoint. I know I had said you would be here for the first hour.
This is all we have.
Okay, so that's the full PowerPoint.
Yeah, so if there are more questions, we're happy to try to answer them.
Well,
okay, appreciate that.
I don't know where you are in your engagement process, but we are moving forward as the Green Zone to do an environmental green summit, if you will, that will take place this summer, coinciding with the larger Minneapolis Connects, or what, I don't know exactly the title, but it seems like you guys might consider joining us in this effort and helping support this effort, creating some marketing tools that might be distributed at this effort, gathering information from the residents and the people that attend at this effort. And so I just want to put that on your calendar, that, you know, the Northside and Southside Green Zone is moving to do an environmental summit, and seems as if it might be a likely time for you guys to share information, gather information, do outreach.
That'd be great. I think we would love to hear more about that and participate. And I would say, I mean, we're as early in the process as we can be. The board adopted the resolution, and we've been working on kind of organizing the plan. But we are just now, as we talked about, we selected the community group cohort on Tuesday, or notifying them, and so we're definitely early in this process, and we'll continue to engage with the green zones through the process. And we do want to continue this conversation, so we'll follow up and we'll keep answering the questions.
Are any members from the north side or south side green zone members of that community group cohort that you just referenced?
Yes, I don't know for sure. I know that Community Power was an organization that Nazir mentioned, is one of the selection, and then Minnesota Renewable Now with Christelle Porter. And then there's a number of North Minneapolis specific groups. I posted the link, but Northside Redevelopment Council, McKinley, a number of nonprofits more serving youth. We're also
Are you talking about is that the team that's going to be doing the engagement on your behalf?
That's the cohort that will be doing engagement and then also helping sort of summarize and identify the themes and really provide direction to the work groups that will be forming the strategies.
I would suggest that you also, just as the green zone has community members, but city employees and staff on the green zone, I would suggest that you have some folks, like Leslie, who's already expressed some interest, concerned citizens that are already tied 360 to environmental matters. One of the things that bothers me about these engagement efforts that, yes, people may have awareness, yes, they may have some knowledge and experience, but it also is a revenue stream that, puts them in some cases at odds with the concerns of the community, secondary to a revenue stream for their own organization. So I think you should add to that list some folks from the South Side and Green Zone or some other community engagement groups that might be not just be, agents to advance the issue, but also to help monitor the process.
And I will say we'll be calling for specific community members as well to participate in work groups that will form to actually develop the strategies. So we can also let you know about those opportunities. But we don't think that this is the only engagement that's going to happen. There will be lots of other touch points for engagement to many different groups.
Are you going to reach out to us when this opportunity arises? As Michael pointed out, within our own cohort of Green Zone members, they're part of other organizations. And I feel that, I don't know how you made this list, but if you do include something, as to say, bringing us to the table and not at the back end, could you keep us in mind when you make these decisions? Thank you.
And I will just emphasize that the ultimate decisions that will be made are by the county board. I mean, the county operates in terms of the board setting policy or direction to implement the zero waste plan. So that's how our work is directed. And so the decisions will be made, sort of recommendations and analysis around strategies, but ultimately the master plan is adopted by our board. And this list, we solicited proposals. And so we, put a call out for nonprofit organizations to participate in the process. And that's how these groups were selected.
Well, thank you so much for being here today to answer questions and to approaching this as part of a dialogue. I think this is a really difficult conversation, and I think everyone has showed up in a way to try to be the most truthful and respectful today. So I just appreciate county folks being here and the community members on our task force and guests being here to dive into this conversation that doesn't have any easy answers. Nazir or Leslie or Crystal, did you want to add anything about the work that you're doing? Is there any call to Green Zone members? Any support that our group can provide?
Yeah, well, actually, we partly came here to notify folks of the same this zero waste plan and talk about HERC. But yeah, Michael, I think we would love to have you and anyone here. We are participating as one of the community groups here, so we would love to join with you or have you be part of it too. Like, if you can't be a separate entity that's like giving feedback, we're happy to work with you and figure out how to make that happen. So I just wanted to say that. I think, yeah, I don't know. We've already said a bunch. I wonder if Leslie or Crystal have anything to add.
I just want to address the comment in the chat about having a gap with Latino representation. I work for Copal, which is a Latinx nonprofit, so I don't know like what type of information you need from that, but like definitely feel free to reach out. I can put my email in the chat.
Thank you.
Great. Well, again, thank you everyone so much. Here, I'll turn my
I
camera
guess I
back on.
got one more comment, Kelly.
Sure, go ahead.
I see, you know, some of the representation from the Asian community in the groups. I see, but I don't see any indigenous input from the indigenous community. And so that to me is a shortcoming. And again, if we're going to be, even though people were opposed to the word inclusive, I think that we should be very conscientious that all ethnic representation of our community is approached, is representative here. You know, we're all in this soup together. So again, it seems kind of obvious to me that, you know, certainly the folks down at Little Earth, you know, have been very vocal about the arsenic triangle and that. And so there's some folks that I think could be this list of contracted community groups. I think there's some people who are missing from the queue.
Absolutely, and that is another gap that we identified in our review, and we are following up through our engagement services folks who have more established relationships, in particular with Indigenous people in the Native American community, to identify additional groups that may want to join the cohort or just to be familiar with the process. But we also know that you know, this is a tough time for groups to commit capacity-wise to take on additional work. Just knowing with COVID and the many other things that are going on that are challenging, we do know that there's limitations to groups who chose to apply or not. So we're following up on that. And any other names you want to share our way, we're happy to follow up with that.
And last question, how are you getting past the issue that right now Hennepin County is not or cannot do any public sitting, public gatherings? How are you moving forward to gather the information you need, put together, help drive the plan, yet our hands are tied behind our back because of COVID? How do those two things align and line up?
Yeah, that's one of the challenges. Another tough question we've kind of the first assignment with the cohort is to help us figure out. We know we can do outdoor engagement, but unfortunately in Minnesota in April, it's still kind of winter, not the spring we want it to be. So we'll be figuring that out and looking to see where potentially exceptions could be made. So groups that maybe in schools, for example, or if there is I know like the Thai Cultural Council was talking about at Temple, they're gathering. And so there may be in-person opportunities, but we have to kind of navigate that with individual groups. But it is important to the county that public health is a priority, as the county is a public health authority. So we have to follow the COVID protocols as best.
And then last, I guess I would marry the whole thrust right now around a number of organizations, Minnesota 350, Project Sweetie Pie, and a whole other bunch of organizations are advancing strategies and tactics for addressing global warming, climate change. Is there a way to insert some of that wisdom and some of that needed information and marketing and outreach? Could we wed some of those concerns to your existing strategy around this stuff?
I mean, I think, I don't know, maybe Ben or Carolyn could talk specifically about the climate, but I mean, there definitely is huge climate benefits to a zero waste future. So there definitely, we see that is likely a thread that will come, a theme that will come out of the engagement work, what we hear from community. There will be ample opportunities, I think, for groups like you mentioned to participate. And we do have another group of sort of stakeholder kind of industry association engagement that will also be happening on a similar track, that I think those, you and Project Sweetie Pie and the other groups you mentioned, can be engaged in that process as well.
Well, thank you for your time and thank you for coming. This is Leslie. We really appreciate you coming, and we're looking forward to you coming back and touching more on what we can do as a community and in our quest to have clean air and plastic-free environment.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the chance to connect and carry on the conversation.
Thank you all.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, with just about 10 minutes left in our meeting tonight, and I do have a hard stop at 7, and also want to respect everyone else's time, perhaps we could do the adoption of the agenda and minutes that I completely failed to at the beginning of the meeting. And then if there's any announcements that folks want to share, and then we'll wrap up. Does that sound okay? Seeing some nods. All right. Okay, do we have a motion to perhaps adopt an amended agenda, since we're not going to get to all of our agenda items tonight? And the minutes from the last 2 meetings, I had included attachments to our meeting reminder emails for both December 7th and our joint meeting with Southside Green Zone on January 5th. Unless anyone has any amendments to those meeting minutes, we can adopt them or accept them as is. Would anyone like to make a motion to adopt the agenda and accept the meeting minutes?
I make that motion. I also want to add on to that motion that this meeting will be continuing meeting, not a close, until we come back and finish the items on the.
Can you hold the phone?
Yes, I'm sorry. I also want to add to that motion that this meeting, we didn't complete all the agenda items. So this meeting
Kelly,
should
did
continue.
you get that motion?
Yeah, Vanessa's clarifying it right now.
Okay.
So the motion is to accept the agenda, approve the minutes, and then this meeting will continue to the next meeting because we didn't cover all of the agenda items.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion before I call roll? Hearing none, I will start at the top of the agenda or the alphabet this time. Akia,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Anita,
Yes.
Joanne,
Yes.
Georgiana,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Lene,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Roxanne,
Yes.
Miss Vanessa.
Yes.
All right, that is all the voting members, unless I missed someone. So the motion is approved.
Now we're at announcements.
Yes. I think we already have the announcements from Nazir and colleagues. I don't need to read through everything that was included in the agenda. Does anyone have anything they want to mention now that wasn't in the agenda that I can add in our notes and follow-up email?
I'd like
Like
to
Nazar has.
add to the agenda, bringing
All right, maybe Nazir, do you want to go first? And then we've got Andrew and Leslie, and Michael will come back to you.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, without the county here, I would just like to, I think say, I kind of said it, but for those who are interested in closing down the HERC, and we have a fact sheet that we would love to share around. I think we couldn't go into extensive detail, but there is a lot of research and information about why that facility is dangerous and the health impacts that it has and the climate impacts. But this zero waste plan is, we were trying to get there. It is an opportunity to push the county to build, to do this correctly, to phase the HERC out and properly introduce zero waste in, all the zero waste kind of infrastructure. But we also, I think this is a real risk. We cannot use this we cannot allow the zero waste plan to be an excuse to pretend they're doing something about waste. And I think you saw it, the answer from Carolyn was when we asked, will this include phase out of the HERC? Her response was when we get to zero waste, which basically means never. So I just want to be very clear, yeah, we can definitely, so anyone who's interested in this group, please let us know.
Thanks, Nazir. And I think, Leslie's dropped her contact information in the chat. So, and Nazir, I don't know if you have as well or want to now. I can also share their contact information out to the whole group, but feel free to follow up with them directly if you're interested. And then
Kelly, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's possible to get the slides sent out to us that Hennepin County had for those of us who weren't able to see them.
Yes, for sure. Yep. And I will definitely email and ask for those as a follow-up and send the PDF out to everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah. Leslie Jackson, did you have something?
Yes, I want to ask if you could share with us the tally and the voting for the stipend and that monies that we had. Did everybody vote? And what is the conclusion to that?
Yes, let me pull that up real quick. Anita, why don't you go ahead while I'm pulling that up?
Okay, just quickly, I wanted to say that we know that there is no plan to close Hennepin County's HERC, but keep in mind that Hennepin County goes a long way out west where there are less communities, there's more land open, and they can move HERC as far west as Greenfield and Rockford, Independence, and Delano. Those are less populated communities. And so the plan would be to, if HERC doesn't want to close down, then to move it entirely out like Northern Meadows was. Thanks.
All right, so here's the results from the Green Zone Stipend Survey. So in case you can't see what the screen is saying, this large blue section, which is 60% of responses, and we had 16 between Northside and Southside, plus a few who sent me comments directly that didn't make it directly into the survey. But they're, yes, members should receive stipends. There's only one vote out of all the 16 that said no, and the rest of the individual votes were sort of yes, and here's some additional information. So, 90% plus say yes, we should pay for stipends. Then going to the how much should stipends be, this is where there was more sort of discrepancy. So it sort of seemed like there was more preference for $50 per hour, but there was also about a third of folks said they wanted a set amount per meeting rather than amount per hour. So when I was talking with Southside Green Zone last week, I thought, maybe to split the difference, we would do like $75 per meeting or something like that. It kind of is in between all the responses. And then in terms of how would members sort of earn or receive stipends? So basically everybody said participating in the monthly meetings. And then there was also strong support for folks who are participating in additional planning meetings or committees. So that would be Green Zone Summit planning, community air monitoring meetings potentially, and if there are any other groups like the Upper Harbor Terminal traffic emissions group, if and when they start meeting. So those are the results. The ones that I received via email or phone call basically also were in the same line as these. They didn't contradict. They were also supportive. So unless there's any disagreement as next steps, what I will do is create a budget estimate for $75 per meeting for those meetings from the beginning of this year through the end of the year. I can share that total number out at our next meeting, and then I will start working on doing starting to calculate the attendance and then payments that would go for everybody. When we've done stipends in the past, we've paid quarterly. So I would propose that we move forward with that as well. So the first quarter for this year, we would have any meetings that went through the end of March would be the first quarter. Then I would put together the invoices. If anyone hasn't yet ever received a payment from the city, we'll have to go through a vendor registration process. So I will talk you through that. It's a little bit of a hassle, but you'll get through it. And then if anyone has any concerns about receiving a 1099 at the end of the year, anyone who does get over $600 from the city will receive that, and it will be taxable income. If you have any concerns about that, just communicate with me when I follow up with you about getting your payments. Any questions about the stipends?
I gotta go, but thank you. I know it's
Thanks, Roxanne.
Bye, Roxanne. Also, I'd like to add that I've been looking for grants to do some more supportive for different entities like Roxanne's Healings, and now we got the Upper Harbor Terminal thing happening, the edible garden. So I'm just looking for more grants to support us as Green Zones, and Kelly and I are working together to write those grants so we can get funding to come in for our different projects. So you guys know I'm working very hard to make us happen.
Andrew, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just one last thing, and having that approved. So I know that you had shared out a file on the 2022 budget, and having that the understanding of stipends kind of figured out. I just urge everyone to take a look at that document so that we can be prepared to talk about it at the next meeting. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening. We'll
Good
see you
night.
next
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Safe, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.